A young bull buffalo stands at the edge of the watering hole, steam rising from his nostrils. He's massive, maybe 900 kilos of pure muscle and fury, but something feels wrong. The water is too quiet, the birds have stopped singing, and across the grassland, hidden in the golden grass, two shapes are moving closer with each breath. He doesn't know it yet, but his entire herd is about to show why buffalo are the most feared prey animal on the African continent. And two hungry lions are about to learn a lesson that will cost them everything. This is the story of what happens when the hunted decides to stop running and starts hunting back. The Serengeti during the dry season is a death trap for anything that gets thirsty. Water becomes impossible to ignore. It doesn't matter how dangerous a watering hole is, how many predators are waiting, how many bones from previous kills are scattered across the muddy banks. When you're parched and the sun is burning your throat from the inside, you drink. And that's where the trouble starts. A herd of 300 buffalo had been moving south for weeks, following a drought that had turned their grazing lands into cracked earth and dust. 300 strong animals, most of them carrying calves, they were willing to die protecting. 300 animals with horns that could gore a lion into pieces, with hooves that could crush bones, with a collective intelligence that rival males never expected from prey. They were driven by thirst and desperation, but they were never truly helpless. That's what made them different from the zebras and wildebeest that dies in such numbers during the dry season. The buffalo didn't scatter in fear like other animals. They grouped tighter, they watched constantly. They had learned something over generations of surviving in the African wild. When predators come, division means death, unity means survival. Two males had been tracking this herd for 3 days. Brothers, not by choice but by circumstance. A pride had kicked them out months earlier when they were deemed too weak to contribute, too young to help with kills, too much of a drain on resources. The rejection had hardened something inside them. They hunted alone now, which meant they hunted hungry. A single lion can bring down a buffalo if everything goes perfectly, but nothing goes perfectly in the wild. The odds are always stacked against you. One missed jump, one delayed attack, one moment of hesitation, and the prey escapes. More often than not, it's the lion that leaves wounded. More often than not, it's the lion that goes hungry. But these two brothers had developed something that most solitary lions never figured out: patience. They didn't attack every buffalo that crossed their path. They studied the herd. They watched for weakness. They looked for isolation. And they understood something that most predators ignored entirely. A herd is not a single organism. It's a collection of individuals, and individuals can be separated. Individuals can be targeted. Individuals can be killed. The older of the two brothers had a scar across his left eye that had healed white and thick. He never saw perfectly from that side, but it had taught him to move differently, to approach from angles that compensated for the blindness. The younger one was faster, more explosive in his movements. Where the scarred one was calculated, the other was instinct. Together they had learned to hunt in a way that took advantage of both strengths. They moved in tandem without needing to communicate. That's what happens when two creatures depend on each other for survival. They develop a language that exists below sound, below thought. It's pure understanding. On this particular afternoon, the wind was perfect. It blew from the buffalo toward the two lions, carrying the scent of the herd like an invitation. The bulls had gathered at the watering hole around midday, which meant most of the calves were with them. A herd with calves is protective. A herd with calves is dangerous. The younger brother knew this. He gestured with a head movement, the tiniest shift of direction, and they moved east, upwind, positioning themselves not for an immediate attack, but for observation. The scarred brother had taught him this: never rush, never decide your strategy from a distance. Get close, watch, understand what you're dealing with before you commit to the hunt. The buffalo aren't stupid. They've survived predators for thousands of years. They know what to look for. They know the signs. A lion charging from too far away gives them time to react, time to bunch, time to fight. But a lion that appears suddenly, from an unexpected angle that's different, that changes the equation. By the time the herd noticed them, the two brothers were already 50 meters away, hidden in a depression in the grassland, where the earth dipped below the level of the grass. From the buffalo's perspective, they just appeared. One moment the horizon was clear and empty. The next moment, two predators were there, motionless, watching. The lead bull saw them first. He was old, with horns that curved inward and scarred from 100 fights with other males over the years. He didn't panic, he didn't run. He lifted his head and let out a sound that traveled across the grassland like a warning bell. That sound meant everything. It meant danger. It meant gather. It meant prepare. And the herd responded with the coordination of a military unit. The mothers moved to the center. The bulls arranged themselves on the perimeter. The smaller calves pressed against their mothers, their eyes wide, their bodies shaking with the electricity of threat. 298 buffalo organized themselves into a defensive formation. Before the lions had taken a single step closer, they had transformed from individuals into a single organism. That's when most predators give up. That's when the lions decide the odds are too bad and walk away to find easier prey. The scarred brother stood. The younger did the same. They looked at each other for maybe 3 seconds. No sound, no physical contact, just 2 sets of eyes meeting and an agreement forming in that space between heartbeats. They were hungry, they were desperate, and something about this particular herd made them feel like today was the day. They both felt it, that sensation that comes sometimes in the wild, when everything aligns, when timing and weather and circumstance all move together in a direction that favors predators. The younger brother attacked first, a straight charge that looked reckless, but was actually perfectly calculated. He wasn't trying to kill a buffalo. He was creating chaos. He was trying to break the formation. The herd's strength came from their unity, from their ability to stand together. If he could fracture that, even for a moment, the older brother would exploit it. The buffalo reacted exactly the way he wanted them to. Fear took over instinct. Instead of holding their ground, the outer ring started moving away from the charging lion. The whole mass began to shift, to break apart. Mothers started running with their calves. Smaller bulls turned and fled. In the span of 3 seconds, the perfectly organized unit fragmented into panic-driven individuals. The younger brother kept charging, pushing deeper into the herd, driving them further apart. That was the moment the old bull made his decision. He was ancient in lion years, maybe 15 or 16, which made him older than most wild buffalo ever lived. He had seen droughts. He had seen lions. He had seen the African wild in all its brutal honesty, and he understood something that the younger bulls didn't. Running didn't work. Running meant dying. Running meant the lions would chase them until the calves couldn't run anymore. Running meant the mothers would be caught from behind. Running meant the whole herd would scatter so completely that no one could help anyone else. So instead of running, he did something that the younger brother didn't expect. He stopped. He planted his massive body directly in the path of the charging lion and lowered his horns. The younger brother tried to adjust his trajectory, but momentum is a brutal physics problem. At his speed, carrying his weight and his forward motion, there was no time to change direction. His chest collided with those horns, and the impact was a sound that echoed across the entire watering hole like a gunshot. The lion went airborne, flipped completely, and hit the ground on his back 5 meters away with enough force to expel the air from his lungs. He didn't get up immediately. For a moment he just lay there gasping, trying to remember how to breathe, trying to process what had just happened. He had been winning, he had been in control, and in 1 second, one single moment of miscalculation, everything changed. The scarred brother saw his sibling go down, and something shifted in his eyes. The older bulls were responding now. They had seen what the ancient bull had done, and they understood what it meant. Power, resistance, a refusal to accept the role of prey. More of them started moving back toward the fight instead of running. They weren't organized anymore. They weren't moving in formation, but they were moving together toward the lions, toward the threat. The psychology of the herd was changing in real time. The younger brother got up on shaky legs. His chest was bleeding where the horns had contacted, deep parallel wounds that were already dripping blood into the dust. He limped back to where his brother was waiting. The scarred one didn't need to say anything. He didn't need to communicate with words. They both felt it at the same time. This herd was different. This herd wasn't going to break. This herd was going to fight. The wounded younger brother wanted to try again. His youth was pushing him toward aggression. He had been hurt. His pride was damaged. His instinct was to attack harder, to prove himself, to show the buffalo that he wasn't as weak as they thought. The scarred brother touched his face with his muzzle, a gesture that meant wait, that meant think, that meant survive first, pride second. But the buffalo didn't give them time to decide. The old bull was moving toward them now, not charging with wild abandon but walking with slow, deliberate purpose. Behind him, 50 other bulls had stopped running. They had turned around. They were walking back into the fight. 100 buffalo started moving in their direction, not in panic, but in the kind of coordinated advance that suggested they had done this before, and they probably had. In a landscape filled with lions and hyenas and crocodiles, buffalo learned. They passed knowledge from generation to generation. They taught their young that running sometimes wasn't an option, that standing sometimes was the only way to survive. 300 buffalo began to reorganize, but this time not into a defensive formation. They began to form a moving wall. The lions were in the middle of the herd, which meant the buffalo had a choice. They could separate around them and let the predators escape, or they could close the circle. They chose to close it. The scarred brother felt the ground vibrating. 300 large animals moving in the same direction creates a vibration that you feel in your bones before you feel it in your ears. The younger brother looked at his brother. His wounds were bleeding. His ribs probably hurt. His confidence had been shattered by that first encounter with the old bull's horns. The scarred one made a decision that most lions never make in situations like this. He turned and ran. Not a tactical retreat, not a strategic withdrawal. A full sprint toward the edge of the closing circle, dragging his wounded brother with him. The younger one was limping badly, bleeding more with every step, but adrenaline is a powerful drug. The fear of being trampled by 300 buffalo moving as a unit was more motivating than any pride. They broke through the perimeter just as the circle closed completely. Behind them, the buffalo had surrounded empty space. The lions had escaped, but barely. The young one's flank was badly torn. His ribs were bruised. His confidence was gone. The scarred one had blood on his face, where his brother had collided with him during the escape. They kept running until the grassland was large enough that a charge from the herd would take too long to reach them. They collapsed under a thorn tree, and for the first time since the younger one had been rejected from his birth pride, he felt something he hadn't felt in months. Not just hunger, something deeper. He felt fear. Real, genuine, existential fear. He had understood intellectually that predators could lose. He had seen older lions die. He had understood the concept, but understanding something and experiencing it are two completely different things. The scarred brother understood what his younger sibling was feeling because he had felt it too. But more than that, he understood something else. They weren't strong enough. Not alone, not together, not against a herd like that. The problem with being cast out from a pride is that you lose the backup. You lose the coordinated attacks that come from multiple predators. You lose the safety of numbers. You become truly alone even when you have a brother beside you. They rested under that thorn tree for hours. The sun moved across the sky. The wind carried the smell of the herd away from them. And slowly, hunger started to override fear. That's how the cycle works in the African wild. Fear doesn't last. Pain doesn't last. Only hunger lasts. Hunger is the one thing that never stops pushing you forward. By evening they were moving again, not toward the buffalo. They had learned that lesson. Toward smaller prey, a young zebra that was limping, an old wildebeest that had separated from its group. The kind of animals that predators could actually kill. The kind that didn't have 300 family members ready to impale you on their horns if you made a mistake. The buffalo, meanwhile, had reassembled near the watering hole. The old bull had a gash across his shoulder where one of the lion's claws had caught him. Several others were bleeding from minor wounds, but they had survived. More than that, they had won. In a landscape where predators usually won, where prey animals usually lost, this herd had fought back and driven the hunters away. The rangers who were monitoring the area documented what happened. They had seen the encounter from a distance, had heard the sounds, and understood exactly what had taken place. They had seen countless hunts in their careers, but this one was different. Most hunts end with the predator winning. This one ended with the prey winning, and the victory had ripples. The two lion brothers became cautious around buffalo herds after that. The younger one's wounds took weeks to heal properly. The scarred brother developed a slight limp from where a horn had caught his back leg. They still hunted, but they hunted differently. They avoided herds. They looked for isolated animals. They became smarter, more careful, more selective. The experience had taught them something that most lions never learn until it's too late. Some prey can fight back. Some prey can win. The buffalo herd moved on when the waterhole dried up. They followed the rains deeper into the Serengeti. The mothers protected their calves. The old bull continued to lead, his body scarred but still powerful. His willingness to stand instead of run had saved his herd. It had created a moment of legend among the buffalo, a story that would be told and retold. In the dry seasons that followed, when young buffalo were learning how to survive, their mothers would point to the scar on the old bull's shoulder and tell them about the day the herd fought back. The two lion brothers never saw that herd again. They went separate ways eventually. The younger one's injuries never quite healed properly. He developed an infection that made hunting increasingly difficult. The scarred brother found a female lion and began building his own pride from scratch, teaching the cubs the lessons he had learned about which prey to hunt and which to avoid. He lived longer than most lions, probably because he understood early on that survival wasn't about being the strongest. It was about being the smartest. But he never forgot the buffalo herd. He never forgot what 300 animals could do when they decided to stop being prey. He never forgot the old bull and his refusal to run. And on some nights, when he was resting with his pride, he would think about that encounter and understand it differently than he had in the moment. It wasn't a defeat, it was an education. The buffalo had taught him something valuable. They had taught him that the line between predator and prey is thinner than most animals realize, that the script can be flipped, that the hunter can become the hunted if the prey is smart enough and brave enough to make that happen. The Serengeti doesn't remember individual hunts. It doesn't care about victories or defeats. It only cares about the cycle continuing. Predators hunt, prey runs, sometimes prey fights back, sometimes prey wins, and life continues, moving forward through drought and rain, through feast and famine, through the endless pattern that has played out on the African continent for millions of years. But for the animals involved in that encounter, for the lions who learned humility and the buffalo who learned that they could stand, it mattered. It changed them. It shaped the way they moved through the world. And that, in a way, is what legend is. Not the story itself, but the way the story changes the lives of the ones who lived through it. 300 buffalo taught 2 lions something that no amount of genetic inheritance could have prepared them for. And those lions carried that lesson with them for the rest of their lives, passing it on to every animal they ever hunted, every herd they ever approached. Sometimes victory looks like the easiest path. Sometimes the greatest victories are the ones that look like defeats until you understand what they really cost.